Thank you for joining the webinar. We will start in 1 minute. Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to this sales leadership webinar, the 7 habits of achieving revenue goal, which is also about high performance sales. Thank you for joining. I understand there are people joining from multiple countries, multiple regions. Thank you for all your support. Let's start. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about the 7 habits, some of the key habits which will help you achieve your revenue goals, which typically means your sales targets. And we'll have multiple speakers during the session. So let me quickly welcome all of them. First and foremost, my name is Sunil Mehta. I look after the business of Quint in India, Middle East, and Africa. And on behalf of Quint, Tal Success, and Richardson, I'd like to welcome all the participants to this session. Along with me is my colleague Pankaj. Pankaj is the Chief Strategy Officer for Tal Success. He'll be joining us towards the end for Q&A and the formal closing. So thank you, Pankaj, for joining us today.
Thanks, Sunil.
A very, very warm welcome to Timothy Sullivan, joining us from US. It's still early morning there. Thank you, Tim, for joining. He's the VP Business Development Richardson Sales, where he will be talking about some of the key habits, and we'll also do a quick introduction towards when he starts speaking. So thank you, Tim, for joining us early morning your time.
Thank you, Sunil. Look forward to being part of this session today.
And last but not the least is Vikas. Vikas is one of our accredited Richardson trainers and coach. He will talk about some of the key habits, again, how we make our sales more effective, how to really meet the numbers, how to develop leadership in sales, etc. So thank you, Vikas, for joining us as well.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone.
Okay, so let's quickly get a quick introduction on who we are. There are a couple of logos that you see. You see Quint, Tal Success, Richardson. So I'll give you a quick, history of where we are. Quint, as you know, started in '92. That's when we set up our base in Amsterdam. Somewhere in 2004, we set up our India operations, which is where we did training and consulting. And initial focus was mostly on the best practice and technology training and consulting. Right? The focus was not too much on the people side, the sales side, the behavior side, the cognitive side, the EQ side. But we realized that that's a very critical component. And 2013, we set up a small division called Quint Colors, which was purely focused on the people side, right? But we realized that, just having one department, a small department within a big organization is not enough. So this year, 2021, we've kind of separated that as a separate brand called Tal Success, and that purely focuses on the people aspects of it, and we'll explain you in a moment. So that's been our history. We are using obviously our 17 years of experience in India and 30 years globally to bring in the best in class modules, trainings, as well as consulting, as well as coaching modules. And we've also globally tied up with some very impactful organizations. Right? And these are the 6 key organizations which are global leaders in themselves. Just to brief, Omnia focuses more on the behavior side, the behavior traits, how to fit the right profile with the right person, how to recruit, how to get the talent acquisition done at the right level. That's more Omnia. EQ talks about, Talent Smart talks about EQ. They're the world leaders on emotional intelligence, and that's playing a very, very critical role in the leadership role as well as in the talent development in the past few years. Pontific Group is from Canada. This is more on leadership. We've launched leadership modules through Canada. Fierce is on the conversation. Everything is evolving around communication and conversation, how to make effective conversations. Richardson is the leader in sales. And again, in sales, we do a lot of conversations, right? And today, some of the models will talk about that, how to make that connect, how to make that preparation, how to make the other thing work together for the customer as well as for the seller. And that would be a more good conversation. And to put it all together is ROI, which is the impact. If you are spending some money in getting your talent developed or you're getting some projects initiated, what is the real impact on the business side? What's the ROI? And ROI methodology comes in and gives methods and tools how you can measure that. So putting it in a nutshell. Today we're going to talk a little bit more on Richardson, where we are talking about 4 key areas: creating opportunities, winning opportunities, obviously growing opportunities, right? And managing the entire sale process as a whole. And today, some of the habits you will learn would talk about all these 4 aspects in a slightly, detailed way. Let's quickly get into the details on Richardson. At this point, I will invite Timothy to talk a little bit about Richardson. What have they been doing? It's one of the world's largest or the largest global leader in sales training. So Tim, over to you for a quick update on Richardson.
Very good, Sunil. Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be here today as part of this webinar. And let me go ahead and share my screen here. You should be seeing that. Richardson Sales Performance has been in the business of helping organizations to improve the performance of their sales team through training and consulting and technology tools. For more than 4 decades, we have been serving clients all over the world. In fact, today we have almost 1,000 clients, and we have served more than 3 million sales professionals around the world. We're recognized as one of the leaders in our space, as you can see from the numerous awards that we have won in the lower left corner. We also are recognized by many of the third-party industry analysts as the leader in this space. I shared 2 of these studies with you here. The one on the left is from Gartner, who did an analysis of all of the different vendors in the sales training and performance improvement space. As you can see, Richardson Sales Performance is listed as a leader. And also on the right from Forrester, which conducted a similar study just this last year. As you can see, we're also in the leadership position. In fact, Richardson is the only organization that is recognized as a leader by all of these third-party industry analyst organizations, and we're quite proud of that. We have a very strong proven track record over our 4 decades of experience, and we work in many different industries, working through our partners like Quint and Tal Success to be able to provide capabilities that enable different clients in different industries to achieve sustainable double-digit improvement in their overall performance. And finally, we also have been recognized by other third-party analysts, such as the Aberdeen Group, which conducted a study comparing the incremental improvement of Richardson's sales performance capabilities to other kinds of alternatives. And relative to those alternatives, we find that, or they found that our clients get a much better improvement in increases in the average opportunity size that they are closing, faster time to productivity for new salespeople, much higher customer renewal rates and repeat business, higher customer loyalty, and probably most important to all of you listening today, more of their salespeople actually exceeding their assigned goals and quota. So again, we're very proud of these results, and we're very happy to be now working with Quint and Tal Success to reach you in your markets today. So let me flip it back over to Vikas. And
thank you so much, Tim. Thank you for the quick introduction. Before I hand over Vikas, a quick update on the logistics. We are recording this session, so people who want to have a look at it later, you don't need to take notes or take snapshots. We will be sharing the recording of this session. Second is there is a question panel on your right side. If you have any question for the panelists, for any of us, please put it up while we are doing. We will collate them and probably put them up towards the end of the session, which is where Pankaj, PK as we call him, will come in and pick up some of the critical questions. And if anybody is not able to hear us properly or not able to see us properly, especially after the poll, there is a little bit of a technical hitch. You might have to log out and log in, just in case some of you probably have a frozen screen and we've gone a little further. So having said that, I like to quickly also do a quick poll before we hand over to Vikas. We want to know who all are coming in. So you'll all see a poll coming up on your screen. If you can just quickly spend a few seconds. Yeah, we have only 5% people who have responded so far. We need to be quite agile on this. Yeah, so that we can move fast. Thank you. I see 25%. Very good. So if you can quickly give us where you are you part of senior sales? Are you part of sales? Are you part of HR, L&D training? Are you part of delivery operations? And any other part of the organization? That'll help us gauge and probably do a little bit of adjustment when Vikas and Tim talk about a little bit further on the 7 habits. Okay, we'll give another few more seconds, maybe 20 seconds more before we show the results. Okay, we can share the results now. All right, so we have 21% of the people from senior sales. These are sales director, sales head, 27 from BDM and also sales. So almost 50% of the people are sales. 6% are from HR, L&D and talent development. 21% are from delivery operations and 24 from others. So we've got a good mix, Tim and Vikas, of the various aspects. They belong to various departments within the organization. Almost 50% sales, which is very, very relevant. So thank you for that. Now the control is going back to Vikas, but before Vikas starts, a quick introduction to Vikas. Vikas started his journey in 92. That's when also you see Quint started in 92. He also started in 92. He started from publishing industry. So he was into big business of publishing. Right at that time, it was not as digital as probably you would want to be. Then, slowly he moved into training and consulting and coaching. So he's been doing this for almost the last 30 years. And since 2016, he has been exposed to Richardson. He's been a formal trainer, approved, accredited trainer and coach for sales-related stuff from Richardson. And we are very, very happy that he's able to come in today and share his experience, and specifically on some of the key habits that you need to have and adapt and adopt from a sales point of view. Thank you, Vikas, and the control is over to you now.
Thank you, Sunil. Pleasure to be here and welcome again to everyone. Thank you for taking the poll as well. It gives us a good idea of the mix that's there in the audience today. And just 1 second, I kept my mobile here to get a sense of how the screen is going to look. So push it away so there's no disturbance from that. My apologies. So we'll be looking at some of the 7 habits now. And as I'm changing my screen, I just want a quick confirmation. You can see my screen, all of you? Yes? Great. Thank you for that. And these are the 7 habits that we have put together, and we believe that if one consciously practices these 7 habits, we will be able to significantly improve our ability to achieve revenue targets. So I'm not going to read out each one of these right now, and as we progress, you will get a sense of what each one of these mean. So let's quickly dive into the first of the 7 habits, which is developing a high level of selling skills. And what are these critical selling skills that we are really talking about here? The Richardson's framework here identifies 6 of these critical selling skills. I'm going to open them up in a slower paced manner. See, what we have most often learned, no one goes to study sales, right? We grow up learning how to sell, and we end up performing the role of somebody in sales, or say get into sales leadership just by doing and being there. There is no academic activity. You don't go and get a certification or a diploma in in sales. But what do you really learn in your younger days when you're in sales? You learn about these two things. You're from your seniors, from your organization. Sales is about asking great questions. Sales is about listening. The focus is on questions, listening, and that's what one really imbibes. But there is more to it. As you keep growing in your career, you realize that positioning is equally important. Positioning, how to articulate your solution, how to position your solution, how to influence or persuade the listener. That is also an important skill that one develops. But what I have found by being associated with Richardson and Richardson's products is that they have identified 3 more skills, and they are equally important in your sales conversations and customer engagements. For example, presence and relating, and I will elaborate on these right now. And the 6th one is something we call check-in, right? So what do we really mean when we talk of presence? When we talk of presence, we mean the ability to transmit confidence and conviction, the ability to establish credibility very early on into the conversation or into the interaction, and gain respect and inspire trust. And that's really crucial. Your ability to generate respect and inspire trust determines how the rest of the conversation will go. So presence is a skill. You can develop it. You can practice and train yourself and become better at showing, demonstrating, and creating a strong impact on the customer through presence. Next, relating. Relating is where we really talk about things like rapport building, the aspect of empathy. And in today's world, authenticity is extremely important. And, it always was, but the authenticity, the lack of authenticity gets picked up really fast. So being authentic is also very important early on in your conversation and engagement with the with your prospect or customer. And this is where you also establish that I'm interested in you and I'm willing to care for you, your problem, and come in with an intent to solve your solution. So that's what relating is all about. Next, questioning. Questioning is something we kind of all know. As I said, we grow up with it, we become good at it. Questioning really is about having the ability to uncover and explore needs. Not only needs, but the context, the motivators, right? And fostering an openness for dialogue. Questioning should be done in combination with presence and relating, right? So if you can blend your skills of presence and relating and questioning, you will create meaningful dialogues that really take you deep into into understanding the customer's needs, context, and motivators, right? Questioning cannot be just independent, right? You have to have the ability to listen. Listen for what? Listen for content. Listen for context. Listen for emotional messages that the customer or your contact or the person you're talking to is transmitting. Again, listen with intent to help and guide. What is positioning? Positioning is your ability to present a relevant and compelling next step. It's not about just positioning the solution, your ability to navigate long conversations and position, okay, what should be the next step? And that is crucial. Think of positioning not only from a point of view, okay, I would like to position my product, my solution to the customer, but shift your thought process from there to say, okay, I'd like to position what is the next best step for both of us, right? And at the same time, your ability to persuade both intellectually and emotionally. We all know customers make emotional decisions first and then they justify it intellectually. So your ability to persuade at an emotional level is also important. And finally, checking. What exactly we mean by checking here? Checking is the skill of eliciting feedback in an ongoing way at each step. This is where you create that skill or the ability to remain aligned with the customer. Aligned in every aspect of the conversation. And what does that help you do? That helps you choose your next best move in the progressing dialogue. So these are the 6 skills that are critical. And as first habit, good salespeople or professional salespeople who have the ability to achieve revenue targets, they consciously practice all of these. Let me now move on. I'd like you to keep this in mind, because I'm going to now take this idea and blend it with the next important habit. What is the next important habit? The next important habit is the ability to execute mutually valuable sales conversations. It's about conversation, it's about dialogue. And how do you approach this this dialogue and consistently create good impact, positive, good, progressive impact? In order to be able to do that, we encourage you to develop the habit of having a framework for conversation. Please keep in mind that framework is different from process. A framework helps you understand where you are in a conversation, or how to arrange your next conversation. And there are 6 aspects to this. Prepare, extremely important. Connect is how you're going to create that rapport, or that set the tone for the rest of the conversation. Again, keep in mind that sales conversations are not just transactional one-off conversations. So you need to have the ability to connect every time you get into a meeting with the customer. And the people in meetings change. You may start with 2 people, then the technology person comes in, then the finance person comes in, and users come into the meeting. So every meeting has a different dynamic, and you need to have the ability to set the tone, set the context, and create a positive impact. Once you have done that, that's when you can really go deep into understanding the customer's context, customer's need, motivators, and the whole aspect of questioning comes in there. Once you've uncovered something, you can start positioning yourself. And again, remember, what I'm saying here is not just positioning for your solution, but positioning the next meeting. Simple example: if your initial conversation with somebody in operations, or somebody in L&D, or somebody in HR, your recommendation could be, or once you have done the initial conversation, recommendation could be, hey, the next best option is if we can call in the CTO, or somebody from technology, or somebody from operations delivery, or some user into the meeting, right? Simple. So look at recommend as your next best, what can you do or position for your next best move. The 5th aspect of the framework is commit. How, bringing commitment to take the conversation forward, the sale forward. And finally, taking action. Right? So once you have done these 5 steps, you need to go back and take your action. So these are the 6 elements of the framework. And once again, I'd like to emphasize, you'll be able to see that this is not process. Right? It'll go back and forth. It'll go back and forth. You may have to move forward. You may have to move back. And once you have completed one set of actions, you start the whole process all over again. What's the value of having a framework? As I said, it's like a safety net. Every time you finish a meeting and come back, you have the opportunity to assess and analyze what went well, what didn't go well, what were the gaps, what can we plan and prepare for the next meeting. So this is an equally important habit that great sales professionals develop, keeping a framework in mind. I just want to quickly show you the link between now the two habits. So if you think prepare is basically something that's done off the desk, so selling skill comes in where there's interaction. Your interactions are in these 4 steps. So at the moment of connect, presence and relating are extremely important. Those are the 2 skills that you really need to have. You need to have other skills. You surely need to have other skills, but these 2 play the most important role. Next, when you come to understanding, it's questioning and listening. When you come to recommend, it's about positioning, right? You need to be able to position yourself. And when you come to commit, it's once again presence. But where does checking come in? I haven't shown you checking. Checking is a skill that comes in across all aspects of your engagement. You need to check and remain aligned with the customer at every step. Okay, few quick thoughts. What are some of the tools and techniques here for understanding Richardson brings you a perspective of having different types of questions, not just open questions or closed questions, but have different types of questions. Think through different types of questions in your engagement. Okay, I'll skip this. I'm running out of time. There was a study that we did. I'll skip this for now. But if you do connect with us, I will share this as a very interesting insight study, case study that we have done internally, which will give you really a good understanding of what happens in asking questions. So these are some tools and techniques you need to use. The different types of questions that you can ask. And when it comes to recommend, you need to be conscious of where really your recommendation is coming from. Is it coming from a technical operational perspective, or is it coming from an emotional a perspective of appealing to the emotional mind, or a combination of both? So you can see somebody who is extremely technical or focused on operation and low on creating an appeal on the emotional mind of the customer, he'll be very product focused. He will not have a high impact. Or if somebody who comes in with a strong charismatic tilt but does not have the ability to present the technical or the operational value, he will not be able to create the same impact as somebody who brings a combination of two or both of them. And again, Richardson's framework helps you understand what are the different things you can do. How do you position your differentiators? How do you use visual language to create that appeal in the mind of the customer? How do you bring evidence to back up your claim, so on and so forth? So keep these few things in mind as you keep thinking about developing this second aspect of the habit. I'll move fast now into the third aspect of the third habit of great sales professionals, which is continuous learning. Sales professionals, good sales professionals, always think and try and understand what went well, what didn't go so well, and what could they have done better. And this is again a framework that you could use on yourself or on your team member, either way. So this is a coaching model. You could coach yourself to some extent by trying to understand how to assess your situation, how to analyze, and how to then address. When we say assess, it's extremely important that you reduce your defensiveness and understand reality. What is the real situation? What really happened? When we talk of analyze, it's about discovering the root cause of the problem. Is the problem a skill gap, a knowledge issue, fears, willingness issue, impatience? Salespeople have these kind of moments of both fears and willingness issues and impatience. And how do you, if those are the things, how do you address them? And then how do you take ownership, create an action plan, and find support to be able to move forward? So again, a fantastic coaching framework that really helps you approach either learning by yourself or helping somebody in your team become better, coaching somebody else in your team. I think I overshot my time slightly a bit there, but those are three skills I wanted to cover from my side. And I'd just like to quickly invite you to take this short poll and give us a sense if we were able to convey some of the important messages well enough in this engagement. So if we talked of 6 critical skills, 5 of them are presented here: relating, questioning, presence, checking, and listening, which is the sixth skill in the 6 critical skills. Presenting, recommending, persuading, or positioning.
Okay, this is a checking question. It's not a trick question. So we just want to understand how have you been listening, and it's interesting. Just put in one of your remarks. 45% of the people have attempted it. That's great. Please spend a few seconds just to check whether we are on the right track of those skills. Okay, we can have the response. Okay, so because for your purpose, 80% says positioning.
Okay,
4% say, 16% say recommending, 4% say persuading, and nobody said presenting.
Okay, great. I think most of you got that right. 80%. The skill is positioning. You use the positioning skill in the step called recommending, right? Where persuading is, we would say, a sub skill under the big bracket of positioning. presenting and persuading are important skills as well. But from our point of view, we would say that positioning is the bigger definition of the skill, where persuading and presenting are sub skills in that bucket. Thank you, Sunil. Thank you, participants. Over to you, Sunil. Over to Tim.
So
Tim will
Vikas,
take
thank
you
you
through the
so
rest.
much. Thank you so much. Because before you, please send the control back to Tim. But there was one point that you talked about where we were talking about the questioning technique. And
Yes.
this is just for my experience. I've been doing sales for 30 years, and I have not
Yes.
gone through a formal program. This is the program that I went through a few weeks back along with Tim. Thank you, Tim, for that. And I realized that even a simple thing like questioning technique, what kind of question to ask, could be very, very impactful. And that was big learning for me. Normally, we will only talk about, we ask question on the objective and current situations, right? If you're talking about a new project, so what's the project, what's your current status? But if you look at the questioning technique, it goes into future needs, right? It goes into personal need of the person who's doing it, so that you can able to connect. It talks about decision making process. It talks about level of satisfaction. And normally 90% of our questions are on current situation. So that was an eye opener for me personally, saying we need to create our questions in a more effective way. So we are covering all aspects, and we have a much wider and a longer view of the solutioning. And then we can also predict, okay, how much is the revenue expected from that client. So I think that was great. Thank you so much, Vikas, for putting it all
I just want to add one point there. The crucial thing here is that you will have an ability to ask questions about future needs and personal needs with comfort and with authenticity if you have done presence and relating properly. So if you have not established presence and you have not created that opportunity of rapport, connect, empathy properly, you will not find those opportunities of asking future needs and personal need questions. And then the quality of your sale gets affected. So it's all connected. We can do another session, Sunil, on all of this separately for those who are interested.
Absolutely, we would. So thank you so much, Vikas. I see some questions already being put in the panel. Please, request all other people, if you have any specific question for Vikas or for Tim or for anyone of us, please put it on the question panel. Now we are moving to the next set of modules, which is delivered by Tim. Just to give a quick heads up on Tim. Tim started his career in 1981. I was a teenager at that time. Some of you probably were not born. Some of you were just in your early years. So he's been a veteran. He spent a huge amount of time in this organization. He joined Richardson in 2002. So again, he's been very, very experienced within the Richardson business as well, apart from the other training programs. And we are very happy that he was instrumental in bringing Richardson to India. And they chose Quint and TalSuccess as one of the organization or the organization to kind of look at their business in India. So thank you, Tim, for the honor. Thank you for the support. And I'd like to now hand it over to Tim for his part of the session.
Very good. Thank you, Sunil. I appreciate the introduction. What I'd like to do here is very quickly complete the review of best practices and habits that we've seen top performers execute in the market today and what's making them successful. So let me go on ahead, and you should be seeing my my smiling face here. Are you seeing that in the screen there, Sunil?
That's right. That's right.
Okay, great. Well, let's go ahead and carry on. And thank you, Vikas, for the overview of the 6 critical skills, the framework that describes what effective sales conversations looks like, and how that can be supported with an effective coaching framework. One of the habits that we are seeing top performers execute very well and very consistently, and based on our latest in research with current customers, the #1 challenge that everyone keeps asking us about is, how do I build a strong sales pipeline, especially in a post-pandemic world, as we are hopefully emerging from this current pandemic? How do I rebuild a pipeline? And to that end, the nature of how we are generating opportunities to be able to create a strong pipeline that will give us a consistent and predictable way for us to achieve or exceed our goals is based on having a well-designed framework to do that. And again, this falls into 3 phases. Being able to prepare adequately for prospecting effectively today. How do we then engage? And then how do we advance to follow up on the opportunities that we create? And this is slightly different than what we've seen in the past. In the past, prospecting was primarily, well, if I may be so bold to say, it was poll taking. It was identifying a list of target customers, developing some stimulating messages that can be used to stimulate curiosity and interest, and then going to that list and working that list. But what we found now is that customers are not particularly interested in responding to those kinds of solicitations. They want salespeople who can engage with them, who understand their business, their unique challenges, and be able to show how they can deliver value immediately. So during the prepare stage, we have to select specific prospects and targets, conduct some research, develop a hypothesis about how we can help them, and then create the appropriate messages for that particular prospect to enable us to get them to respond to us and begin a larger discussion. Then we can gain the appointment and ask for referrals based on the curiosity that we have developed for them. So if your salespeople are struggling at creating enough opportunities to build a strong pipeline, a predictable flow of business, you might want to take a closer look at your prospecting practices today and see what can be done to make that a little bit sharper and a little bit more focused on individual prospects and customers to help stimulate their interest and curiosity. The next best practice that we think all top performers need to be able to do today is to be able to present the value of your solutions, but not only be able to present the value of your solutions, but to do that in a variety of mediums. And I'll show that in just a moment here. What do we mean by highest value? First of all, many salespeople think that value is simply presenting the capabilities of your offerings, of your services and your products, and letting the customer to determine what might be the best fit for them. Buyers today are not looking for that. They're looking for salespeople that can help them to discern, out of all of the capabilities that you can offer, what are the things that are most important to them? What are the things that create the most value for them? And also, what sets you apart? What makes you unique? What do you offer that is something that differentiates you from your competitors? There are 3 different kinds of differentiation. There are those that are proprietary, that are unique to you. It might be a copyright or some unique technology or some unique feature or capability that only you have. That's fairly rare actually today, or it doesn't last very long as competitors can replicate that capability over time. Another type of differentiator is a comparative differentiator. You simply do things better and can prove that with case studies and examples. Or holistic differentiators, which are general services and capabilities that your organization or your partner community can provide that gives you a broader and deeper value proposition. We encourage salespeople, when they're thinking about their sales conversations, to focus on those aspects for that particular customer that are highly differentiated, that are of high value to solving their particular problems, and which are unique to you. And so that will prevent you from simply listing capabilities and feature functions and letting the customer to figure that out. You can focus on the differentiators. I mentioned also the ability to express that in different medium. Well, the pandemic has changed everything, and now, according to Gartner and Forrester, the preferred mode of most buyers today in interacting with salespeople is virtually, just as we're doing right here on this particular webinar. And unfortunately, that does require a different skill set than something that most salespeople didn't. I mean, they didn't grow up with it. They didn't develop, live in a virtual world. Well, now we do. And so being able to connect with people through a sheet of glass and be able to make a personal connection in what otherwise is an impersonal medium is a skill that most salespeople need to develop. So if your teams are not equipped to be able to engage virtually, then all of the differentiation and the messaging that you provide will not go over as effectively as you expected. So there is a format to an effective virtual sales engagement. And if your salespeople are not equipped to be able to execute these kinds of skills in a virtual medium, they will be at a significant disadvantage. The best performers understand how they need to prepare, to open, to convey value in a virtual medium, and then close effectively. The next habit of top performing salespeople that we see today is how to negotiate win-win value agreements. And negotiating and closing today, the number one competitor for most salespeople today continues to be taking no action at all, staying with the status quo. So if we can help salespeople to negotiate based on value and motivate buyers to agree to move forward with the purchase decision, then you are going to have a much better chance of achieving your goals. And there's a very simple tool, which I'm displaying here, that will help salespeople to negotiate win-win agreements. And that is to do even just a few minutes of planning. Number one, to determine, is this opportunity really closable today? Have I done all of the things that are necessary in order to help bring this opportunity to close? You don't want to close prematurely because customers do not react well to that. Also, when I receive a request for some kind of a concession or discount, how will I respond to that? What stands can I take that will enable the customer to see that I'm acting in their interest and help to defer or deflect those requests for those kinds of concessions and discounts? And then if we do need to make some concessions and discounts, have I thought about that in terms of things that we can do that are relatively low cost to me and my organization, but are of high value to the customer, and vice versa? In other words, have I considered some kinds of trade-offs that would be of equal value to both the buyer and the seller, and then be able to trade those other than simply discounting the price? Most salespeople do not plan this in advance, but if they do, then they're very much more equipped to be able to come to an agreement in a way that's going to preserve their margins. And then also finally, what are the things that are simply not negotiable? In other words, what do I need? What criteria do I have for potentially walking away from a bad opportunity? So if your salespeople are not taking even just a few minutes to plan out their final negotiations for coming to a final agreement using a structure like this, then they're at a significant disadvantage. And the chances are that the customer will simply choose not to buy, put off that buying decision, or go with a competitor. The final best practice that I want to cover today is something that we've seen most recently, and that is that sellers need to be able to adapt to buyers, and they need to use agile selling practices in order to do so. The number of people that are now involved in a typical business-to-business purchase decision has more than doubled in the last 4 years, and that's according to research conducted, again, both by Gartner Research and by Forrester. The number of people that are involved in purchase decisions has increased dramatically, and so salespeople need to be much more agile in how they interact with buyers today. And we are recommending that buyers think, or rather that sellers think about their activity in terms of focused bursts of activity that we call selling sprints, that they have a specific objective within the sales process and that they plan and prepare for it effectively, that they engage, and then they reflect on what they need to do to advance to the next step. And so breaking down the sales process into a series of selling sprints focused on those increased numbers of individuals is a much more reflective way, a much more responsive way for sellers to be able to react to the changing dynamic of buying decisions today. If your sellers are not using an agile approach to adapting to different kinds of buyers, then they're at a significant disadvantage. Old linear models of engaging with customers with a relatively small number of decision makers is no longer the norm. So what I'd like to do now, Sunil, is turn it back over to you. And I understand that we have a poll. We've presented you with a number of different ideas and best practices, and we'd like to see if you have any particular interest in carrying on the conversation with us. We'd be delighted to explore these further with you. So Sunil, I'm going to turn this back over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Tim, for the update. So you will see a quick poll on your screens. Please help us with your interest if you need to know more. There are some questions, Tim and Vikas and Pankaj, that have already popped up, around 9-10 of them. They're still coming in. So while the team is doing the voting, yeah, just look at the questions, Pankaj, and you can be ready. Okay, so there are some more exciting news coming in. Pankaj will be sharing that very, very shortly. But before
Sure,
that,
Sunil, thanks. Yeah, let's have this poll and then.
okay, another 40 seconds. Then we will close the poll. Yeah, we've got 65% people who put something. So just put one of the three so that we know what your interest is, so that we don't trouble you further or do trouble you further, depending on what you want. Okay, another 20 seconds, then we will share the. Okay, we can close the poll now. So now I'm going to hand it over to Pankaj. He will talk a little bit about what's the exciting news that we have bringing in Richardson to India, what it means to you. So Pankaj, I'm going to go to the slide and it's all yours.
Yeah, I can't see. I think they're still showing the poll on my screen, Sunil.
Yeah, it's coming up.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks, Sunil. Thanks, Tim, for the last 3 best habits which you covered. And I particularly like the sprint one, which is the how to use agile in sales. That's very interesting. Thanks all the audience, first of all, for joining and taking time out. We have an exciting news. I think all the people who attended this event, we would like to give them an e-learning access. That one thing they'll be getting from our side. And also the research which Richardson has done on agile selling, there'll be a white paper they just released, and they will be getting the copy of this white paper, which is being in agile and how do we use agile best practices in sales called sprint selling. I've got almost 10 questions, but I will cover the 4-1 because we have a paucity of time. Let me see how many questions I can cover. The first question we actually is for Tim. How do we identify which habit or skill is needed for my team?
Yep.
Among all the 7 habits which we covered.
That's a very good question. I mean, we've thrown a lot of ideas at people today. The question is, where do you start, right? What's the highest priority? The best way to do that is to take a quick assessment of the strengths and weaknesses of your organization today. One of the questions that I would ask you is, do you have organized frameworks in place today for developing the foundational skills that are necessary in every sales interaction, for planning and executing effective conversations, for coaching and developing your people, for being able to negotiate and close business, to convey value consistently and effectively? I mean, if you think about these kinds of questions relative to the 7 habits that we've described today, it'll be pretty clear very quickly as to where it is you need to prioritize. All of these are required for consistent sales success, right? I would recommend first by starting at the foundational level. Look at the foundational skills. How well do your people do the 6 critical skills or continue to execute those 6 critical skills? Because we can teach people how to negotiate, but if they don't have the fundamental skills to be able to do it consistently and to be able to communicate effectively with customers, then they're not going to be able to close business. So we've presented these 7 habits in sort of a foundational way, from the most basic foundations of essential skills all the way up to some of the more elaborate ways of interacting with customers. So I would start first with the foundational levels and then work my way up to something that is tuned to the needs of your particular organization.
That's a great answer. Over to Vikas. This is an interesting question. How can we assess sales training? And what are some of the common matrices we can use to assess the value of sales training?
I was on mute, sorry. That's a very interesting question. Assessing sales training is not always easy. There are various parameters that come into play there. The context of the market. So you may be wanting a certain output, but the context of the market needs to be factored. So just depending your assessment, your judgment on the sales training, if that particular training is generating results right away or in the short term, is not necessarily the only metric or the metric to follow there. So did I really change or improve my my revenue performance? There are 2 or 3 other aspects you need to look at there. One definitely is the product market fit and the connect, which is really there or not, or the market may have moved since the moment you have created the product or the service that you are using. The competitors may have evolved, or the needs may have shifted. So all these things need to be factored. I personally think it's hard to make that decision. I would depend on 2 things here in order to make that decision. One, like Tim said, first make an assessment of where you are in terms of some of these basics. If these basics are there, then we can look at advanced training. The other is use some simple frameworks to understand where you stand vis-a-vis competition and the market. So once you have both of these, the picture with some more clarity, it becomes easier to say, okay, I need this kind of sales training now, or I need to focus on this aspect of sales training right now. Or maybe step back and do some strategy for a moment. Say, hey, can I just take a step back and see if I can improve the product market fit? Or can I just make sure that, what can I bring as differentiators? So on and so forth. So those are the 2 things you need to look at, and then make an assessment and judgment.
So maybe Pankaj, I want to add, Tim has mentioned that. So we need to decide what's our issue. Is getting leads our issue? Is converting leads the issue? Is penetration an issue? So depending on that, you will pick up what is more relevant. So your KPIs and metrics basically will depend on what your core issues are, because there's not one solution which fits in. That's one. Second, I think, is the way Richardson trainings are created. It's not just a training, it's more a kind of a, I would say, a culture that we are trying to create for them. And it is bundled with trainings, the entry-level training, advanced training, coaching, hand-holding, and even ROI, which is where I talked about the impact creation. And if you're spending $100,000 or 20 lakhs or 30 lakhs on getting your guys ready for the conversion, how much is the conversion? What's the real value? So there are different ways, but there is no one set of metrics which you can paste on every sales training. It would depend on really what your issues
are. This question is for a person who is running a startup, Tim. He's running a startup, and the question is, in the initial stage, how can he when he's new in the market, when his products are new.
Pankaj, if I understood the question is, go ahead, please. Yep. Yeah, Pankaj, I'm not hearing the end of your question, but if I understood, this is someone who has a startup situation and is looking to determine where should they focus in a startup. Is that right? Okay. Well, let me just answer that question, if I may. First of all, just like any new business that begins, where you are creating your processes for creating your offering, for bringing that to the market, your sales best practices need to be developed as well. And so we've shared a number of frameworks today that you can use as a starting place for your organization. I would start with in a startup, probably the most important thing that you can do relative to sales is to figure out what are your differentiators and how do you communicate your unique value in the marketplace. We talked about the differentiation grid, which showed the different kinds of differentiators, right? As a startup, You're going to be competing with established players in the marketplace. And if you can't set yourself apart very quickly and show how you can develop unique solutions to meet a particular market niche or a particular type of customer, then your salespeople are not going to be very effective. So an excellent place for startups to start is to look at that differentiation grid from the perspective of a salesperson communicating to a buyer. What are the things that are unique to you that, or where you can provide that differentiation, either at a proprietary, a comparative, or holistic level? And then how do we communicate that effectively? Then you can use the sales dialogue framework to be able to create the right messaging and have effective sales conversations. All right, so as a startup, getting your differentiation and your value positioning is probably the most important place to start, because then that will equip your sellers to be able to have more effective communications and help your marketing team to know how to position the value in the market and generate more interest. Okay. All right. Do we have any other questions?
We are facing some issues at Pankaj Jain, but there are more questions. It also says that is there an assessment available for sales
You can hear me?
selection? Yeah, Pankaj, I'm taking over. So I'm saying, is there an assessment available for sales selection so we are able to select the right people in sales? It's open for Tim or Vikas.
There are assessments that are available for determining the core competencies and skills of sales candidates that you may be evaluating and hiring. I would talk to Sunil and the folks at Quint who can give you some guidance as to some different types of assessments. Different assessments are, there's no one assessment that fits all particular customer situations. It depends on where you are in the maturity of your organization, the maturity of your sales force, and also what your objectives are in terms of hiring sales candidates. Are you bringing on new people with no experience whatsoever with the intention of training them internally? That assessment is going to be very different than if you're trying to find and hire candidates with experience already in the marketplace. So I would defer to Sunil and Pankaj and the Quint team to be able to guide you and to advise you as to the most appropriate assessment for your particular business situation.
Okay, to add to what Tim says, definitely there are these psychometric sales assessments which are available. There are available from Omnia, we talked about that. They're also available from Talent Smart EQ, which is more on the sales. So there are certain traits the sales should kind of demonstrate, some things like assertiveness, things like the art of conversation. And today we talked a lot about conversation. Everything that we're doing in sales is about talking, right? So it's a give and take. You talk to your customers, they object, you kind of talk to them again, they object, and that's how they negotiate, and they sometimes put you in a tough spot, and then you have to kind of again converse with them and either come out of that or leave that, right? So I think that's important. As Tim said, we have assessments which are available on sales as well. It's also available in the market openly. So you need to first select the right people, right? But what about people you already have? That doesn't mean that you they're not the right people. They're very successful people. But that would also mean that you do an assessment for them, and there could be some 2 or 3 habits if they pick up that will make them a much more impactful salesperson than what they are. Like the example I took, my questioning technique was not that super, right? I was talking more than listening, and I've been probably doing that for 30 years without knowing about it. And once we did the course, we rolled it back, we looked at it and saying, hey, I did not even give the customer a chance to speak. We were so happy selling our proposition to them because we are so excited that in that 30 minutes, we've spent 20 minutes only talking about it. And then that conversation is over, and then we hope that the next time we have another slot, and sometime we don't. So I think those are important things. One more thing which is propping up again and again, I want to show this slide again. We have lots of questions, Tim, and because on how do you measure the output? Again, we are talking, there are about 7 questions which again popped up with saying, how do I measure the output of the training program? And again,
Yeah,
I will go back. Again, I will go back to the initial discussion that Tim did. That what's your starting point? Is your issue with generating leads? Is that an issue? Is the issue with conversion of leads? Is the issue with the revenue per lead, which is the deal size? Is it with the time taken to close the lead, right? Or is it something else? So based on your issue, you will obviously pick up that trade, pick up that module, pick up that training module, right? Coach on people on that, and then you'll start measuring. It's a simple measure. There's no complicated measurement. You just look at the next deals and see how effective they have been. Any last words, Tim and Vikas?
yeah, Sunil, I'd like to elaborate just a little bit on that. Evaluating sales training is a difficult proposition, but the model that we like to use is a variant of what's known as the Kirkpatrick model, where we look at 4 levels of evaluation of any particular training program. This is especially useful for sales. Number 1, how did people react to the training? If people liked it, you know, they're more likely to adopt and use it. So evaluating after the training, hey, how did you like the training on a scale, you know, from I hated it to I loved it. So number 1, just emotional reaction is a useful metric. Number 2, did they understand it, right? And so we can test either after training or in series of exercises during training to determine whether or not people are getting it. We had a poll question earlier today that Vikas said, okay, here are the 6 critical skills, you know, which one is missing? So those kinds of questions as we're delivering can give us some kind of an idea of whether or not people are actually understanding. The 3rd level, which is most difficult to measure, is does it changing behavior? Are people actually applying what they learned? And one of the nice things about sales training is that if you teach people a framework, you can capture in your CRM systems or in your management inspections whether or not that behavior is actually changing. All right, are people now adopting and using what it is that you have provided? And so once you identify the specific behavior changes, as Sunil said, then you can use those kinds of methods to be able to determine to what degree changes. And then finally, the business objectives, and you see that displayed here. What's the primary business objective that we want to come out of the training? And then frankly, that's one of the easiest to measure because it's based on the real observable business results. Being able to prioritize which one is the most important to you. So I would recommend when you're looking at training, look at it at 4 levels, from reaction to understanding to adoption, and then finally business results.
Okay, excellent. Yeah. Thank you so much, Tim. We've ran out of time. It's 5:02 now for local time. So there are a few more questions, but we promise you there is some. I think about 7 more questions, but we will have to respond to them one-on-one. They are related to what we talked, but we need to probably send them a separate one-on-one on the solution. So we will do that. But I'd like to thank Tim to join so early in the morning. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you, Vikas, for joining in and moving all the people from the room out so you could be alone. Thank you, PK, joining in from Bangalore. And thank you all the participants who stayed with us for more than an hour now to listen to this. All of you will get the recording. Don't worry, there are at least 6 people asking about whether we'll get the recording. You will. I know this is a critical discussion for you. It is a lot of information we'll definitely want to share with you. And probably we'll do another session similar to this as we go along. This could be a series every 4, 5, 6 weeks. We like to bring one area and go a little deeper into it rather than trying to cover too many that we did today. So thank you so much. Have a great day and catch you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Take care.